Good evening, everybody. This is Matthew Brenner. The date today is December 21st, 2016. This is a special podcast I'm recording. It is not about specific news in as much as it is an idea I have about a website that is basically a news synthesis website that would be beyond reproach. Let me start off with the reason why I created my YouTube channel in the first place. It was in response to the whole fake news narrative launched after the election of Donald Trump. As you might recall, they came out with something along the lines of, "Hey America, how would you like to get back at all those nasty websites and personalities that helped get Donald Trump elected with their fake news stories? Well, here's a list." Originally, it was some esoteric list of sites the Washington Post got its hands on from some college professor, and she really couldn't back it up. And then they had something else from a website, prop or not. And then it turned out the only criteria, or the one criterion they had used, was whether or not websites had linked to Russia Today. And I started to question the term fake news. I said to myself, all right, fake news consists of headlines along the lines of "Bigfoot lives," or "Behold the amazing frog boy." You know, things that you would see in the Weekly World News, maybe joke stories in The Onion. But a lot of the sites that were on these lists of fake news that were on social media and that the mainstream media were carrying were alternative media sites that had been around for years, that in my mind had established some credibility. Maybe they ran a lot of partisan stuff that favored Trump, and maybe they had reported on some conspiratorial stuff. But as far as favoring Trump, when you have the other candidate being Hillary Clinton, who, to quote H.A. Goodman, was a dumpster fire of a candidate, she made bad decision after bad decision. Everybody else had to carry around her dead weight. She was not showing up for press events. She was having pollsters manufacture these leads saying that she was 9, 12 points ahead, 15 points, and she seemed to want to rest on her laurels. There were also questions about her health with, her collapses and coughing fits and everything else. So when I saw this smear campaign about fake news, Russian propaganda, and everything else, I said to myself, well, if they're going to try to throw out the baby with the bathwater, maybe there were a few rotten apples that needed to be plucked from the bunch, and websites that didn't have much credibility, because I saw the list and there were a couple in there I was less familiar with that maybe hadn't been around as long, and I was saying to myself, okay. But then there's others that have been around for quite a while. Let's take, for example, 3 of them I can think of off the top of my head. What Really Happened, Breitbart, InfoWars. Now, some people might not like the things that those sites have to say. But to say that they are fake, I don't think so. Partisan, perhaps. Conspiratorial, as far as conspiracy theories, maybe questioning the 9/11 narrative, maybe questioning our motives for regime change and wars, questioning the Federal Reserve System. What's wrong with asking questions about things where there are cases for quite reasonable doubt? I see nothing wrong with that. I think that's a very healthy thing that consumers of news do. But the mainstream media are, in fact, liars. They've been caught I can't tell you how many times. I mean, their most famous lie, the weapons of mass destruction, that we never found. But they're kind of trapped in this model where they have to go along and lie with the politicians, because when they've tried to tell the truth, like Dan Rather reporting on George W. Bush's military service, he got fired. Dr. Drew questioned Hillary Clinton's health. What do you know? He loses his TV show. So, I'm going to read you an interesting statistic I got from Business Insider. This was circa 2011. This article was published. In 1983, 90% of America's media was owned by 50 companies. By the time you got to 2011, that same 90% was controlled by 6 companies, which are as follows. General Electric, which controls things like Comcast, NBC, Universal, Focus Features. News Corp, which controls things like Fox News, Wall Street Journal, New York Post. Disney, which controls things like ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Miramax, Marvel Studios. Viacom, which controls MTV, Nickelodeon, BET, CMT, and then Paramount Pictures. Time Warner, which is CNN, HBO, Time Magazine, Warner Brothers, and then CBS, which is Showtime, the Smithsonian Channel. I'm not sure whether or not they still control this, but NFL.com. And then it goes on and on. But those are the big 6 now. And they have become the Orwellian Ministry of Truth. They have to march to the drumbeat of the political establishment, or else. So what I want to do is have a website that is not left-wing or right-wing. It's just truth-oriented, that reports news stories and sources these stories from a variety of different sites. And it says, here are the facts. Here's where we got them from. You decide what you think. You have a brain. You can logic. What conclusion do you draw from the evidence we've presented? Because my concern is that the government and the media, or the mainstream media, are going to continue on this fake news crusade. And I would like to put together a project, or like a website that's an umbrella for print journalism, videos, and such, that can build up some credibility and get past smear tactics of, this is fake news. I'll tell you, I started off at a younger age believing everything I saw in the nightly news. Then as things unfolded, really for me, what cracked open everything was watching Dylan Avery's Loose Change back in 2006. Because when 9/11 happened, I was just as outraged as the rest of America. How could those damn jihadist, terrorist Muslims fly those planes into the buildings and the Pentagon? And then, with all the reporting on the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, well, maybe we do have to go in and get Saddam. And then all the stuff that came to light later, once I watched that documentary on 9/11, boy, I started asking so many more questions. I burned it onto DVD and showed my friends. You should have heard some of the things they said to me. This is ridiculous. This is just conspiracy theory. You need to have your head examined. The guy that's putting this out there should probably be arrested. With some of them, I probably would have made them less angry or furious with me if I had put on a hood and burned a cross in their front yard. I'm exaggerating for effect, but I think you know what I'm saying. And I later started listening to some talk radio, found some interesting personalities. You take some of them with a grain of salt. George Norrie, Whitley Strieber, Jeff Renz, just some interesting stuff. And I also found other sites, What Really Happened, InfoWars, Breitbart, And I started reading a little bit of everything. I had different likes on Facebook, but now I've noticed these likes don't even trend anymore because Facebook is trying to factor them out of the equation. People are getting their Twitter accounts suspended or banned. Social media landscape is about to change. And now that they've added this new part to the 2017 NDAA, I don't know where the government is going with this, but I would like to set up some kind of a website with help from other citizen journalists that is ultimately going to be beyond reproach, because it's going to have stories of national interest, world interest, that's going to have facts, give sources, try to stay away from partisanships, get away from the whole left-right paradigm, and just look at, are these politicians and elites and wealthy people and celebrities acting like criminals? Are they being immoral? Are they being dishonest? Are they being socially destructive, irresponsible? And if so, let's report on it. What's happening in our world? Let's find out about that. And what we do find out, let's talk about where the information's coming from, and let's vet it as best as possible. Let's create a community where everybody is welcome, whether they belong to a political party, they're unaffiliated, maybe they're not even interested in the actual politics of it, they just want objective information. So I say to you, as far as creating a website that has written articles and videos where everybody can participate, that has sources, that can build up a reputation and credibility, that if the government goes to try to shut it down, people will be like, hey, wait a minute. These guys are actually doing journalism that's worthwhile, and there would be outrage. So what say you? I would really be interested to read your comments, your suggestions, your feedback, because I think this is an idea whose time has come. I think the mainstream media have forfeited their collective credibility. I think some of the alternative media, not all of it, but some of it is a little too far right for some people's liking, and it might turn them off. Or maybe they feel like, oh, that's just all conspiracy nonsense. But if there were an objective place that welcomed everybody, where they could just be consumers of news and people could participate and gather information and become more informed, I think it would really go over well. So leave me your feedback and suggestions and input, and I will comb through it and reply where appropriate, and let's see where it goes. Thank you very much for your time.